I might deviate once in a while, but there were too many stories to try and tell in an hour or two or three. Actually, I didn't even like Barbershop. First time I heard it. I happened to be down visiting my college buddy, Jim Henning, who didn't show up because he knew I was going to do this today, I think. Anyway, we became good friends at school. He went down to Davenport, working for Bendix. I came up here, was working for Honeywell. And of course, he invited me to come to a show. Well, I said, well, all right, I can spend one night, you know, and listen to whatever you're doing there. And it actually wasn't too bad a show. I kind of enjoyed it. They had some good talent on the show, and I said, well, you know, that's all right, you know, that was kind of fun. But I never really intended to join. He kept badgering me, and as it turned out, I changed jobs, and my Tuesday nights became available. So I showed up, and it was a pretty good bunch of guys. I still enjoy them, and I'm sure some of them will be friends till they turn me under. We've had some very good times. Anyway, when Jim and Kay moved up here, that was the beginning of my barbershop career. Actually, the beginning of my singing career, because I never did like to sing very much. I'm one of these people who was totally embarrassed by a fourth grade teacher, and I never sang a note after that for anybody, anywhere. Well, maybe once or twice out in the middle of the cornfield while I was cultivating corn, and nobody could hear me. I was sure nobody could hear me because the tractor made more noise than I did, I'm sure. So I did show up at Bloomington, and we had some good times. Like, I enjoyed the sing-outs at the ball games, the fishing trip, camping with the families was, you know, something I could really enjoy. Singing was not, still not my forte at all. Okay, I like music. I always liked music. Played a lot of music. Played in quite a few groups over the years, but singing, no, I just didn't do it. Anyway, I think I probably got hooked on one of our fishing trips up to Eagle Bay in the fall. And of course we did a lot of singing, or everybody did a lot of singing there. They got me in the sauna and were trying to teach me a tag.
Who did? Who did?
People like Jerry. And at that point in my singing career, I was good for some of the Johnny One Note tags. You know, they here, just hang this out there as long as you can, and we'll harmonize around it. Well, it actually didn't sound too bad in the sauna. So I kept at it, and Jim said, well, even if you know, don't like to sing that well, there's always other jobs you can do. So I did a few of them. Didn't necessarily volunteer, but I think I was president for at least 7 times in my tour at the chapter, and held a few other jobs as well. Most every job in the chapter at one time or another. And I did learn a few more tags. I learned some 2-note tags. You know, like behind. I could do that. Eventually I learned the bass to it. But they were patient with me. Some people that I'll never forget, you know, people like Gene Teetsy. Most of you remember Gene. He would stand around after meetings and he would sing with me, teach me, whatever. We actually had a bass quartet one night. We sang for the chapter, whatever. You know, 4 basses trained to sing all 4 parts was kind of interesting, but we got through it. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Finally, a couple of years later, I think it was, maybe, you all remember the Bloomington Comedy Contest. Well, I got in a quartet with John Bergseth. Some of you may know John. I don't think he sings actively anymore, but we put on a comedy routine with John singing lead on Put a Nickel on the Drum. Not your typical barbershop song, but anyway, it was kind of fun. And that was probably my first quartet performance, so to speak, okay, in the barbershop genre. There were some other things that happened. I think Jerry talked me into one comedy quartet contest, and I got dressed up in drag with a nice red wig and a beautiful red dress and all that kind of stuff. And since nobody knew what was coming, most of the people out there didn't even know it was me, fortunately. But I've made a fool of myself more than once trying to sing, and it was still fun. At that time, in those years, contests were regular chorus events. We loaded up in a bus and went wherever the contest was, and we sang all the way there and all the way back. I probably sung Beer Barrel Polka on that bus at least 100 times, maybe more. You know how many, Jerry?
102.
102? Okay. Sounds like a good thing. Eventually, we got involved in Valentine quartets. And we had a good time doing Valentine quartets, with just a pickup group, and really enjoyed the heck out of it. Well, I finally decided after 30 years, it was time to form a quartet. So we did. Most of you probably haven't heard of it. We never registered. We never competed in a contest. Never wanted to do that stick. But the Wizards of Oz sang quite a few gigs over the 10 years that we were around together. We went through several tenors and a couple of baritones, like most quartets have. But we enjoyed it thoroughly, and probably one of the best experiences was when we started out, sort of semi-seriously the first year. We signed up for quartet school they used to call it HEP school. Went down to La Crosse, and that year some of you may remember the Ritz. They were the quartet coaches that year at the school, and they could tell we were pretty raw, but they were wonderful to work with, and really encouraged us and helped us a lot in just one weekend. It was unbelievable. Okay, even though we didn't have our actual baritone there, he couldn't make it, so we had a substitute baritone, and it worked out. Of course, the baritone left town after that. He's teaching school in England still to this day, and he's doing quite well in his quartet over in England. They compete regularly, and he has a good time with Barbershop over there. But I remember we had some comments about the song we sang for that school. A song our guys will remember, written by one of our former directors, called "I Can't Remember." It was an original composition she did just for the chorus. So we learned that as a quartet. Most of the time we could sing it. The lyrics got a little mixed up once in a while. We really couldn't remember a part of it. Anyway, we lasted about 10 years in that quartet, and it's been truly a great time, really rewarding for me. Maybe not so much for my wife sometimes. She still doesn't really enjoy all of Barbershop. she doesn't mind going to the show once a year, that kind of thing. But beyond that, you know, she gets a little frustrated when I crank it up in the car. I'm sure some of you have had that experience, but it's been fun. It's been rewarding to me, and I've made a lot of friends, and I think only one enemy in the 40-some years that I've been involved. And that's about all I have to say, unless some of you have some questions about Mike.
What about your photographic experience of taking photos?
Well, that's something I started long before barbershopping. And we'll be doing long after.
In that while you were barbershop.
Yeah, I photographed almost every event that Bloomington ever participated in, I think, over the years. And nowadays, if I don't take pictures on any given day, it's a bad day. That's one of the things I do. Everybody has their hobbies. That's one of mine. I got my first camera over in real camera in Tokyo. Bought my first SLR, and it's been a progression ever since. And I still have just about every camera I ever bought. But the big thing in cameras was switching to digital. That was what really made it fun for me. 1999, bought my first little digital camera. About $500 for one about the size of that phone that nobody would even use today. 1.3 megapixels.
I have a question. In all the years that you had the Valentine's coordination part of it, we were up to 200-300 gigs when you were in charge of that. Would you do it again?
Well, it was a lot of fun, a lot of work, but
Answer the question.
would I do it again? I suppose if my arm was twisted hard enough, I might. Any other questions?
I got, what did the Wizard of Oz wear? What was your costume? Did you have a thing that was?
Oh yeah, we earned enough money to buy costumes. We had a vest. No, we didn't have it, except for Halloween a couple of years. We came up with. We did have the real Wizards of Oz costumes one year. I was a lion. I think our tenor was the Tin Man, and they were all, you know, sort of homemade costumes. Well, I think our lead's wife was a pretty good seamstress. She made the lion costume. See, the baritone was the scarecrow. That was kind of appropriate. Right. And what was Russ? Remember?
Dorothy?
No, he was not Dorothy. Who was the Wizard of Oz character?
What were the?
I can't remember what Russ was.
What were your quartet guys? The other guys' names in your quartet, the Wizard of Oz.
Well, Russ Sedevig was our lead, and in the beginning, Bob Bragg sang tenor with us, and then he switched to baritone, and his son became our tenor. He's no longer singing anywhere that I know of, but he was a good musician, a good tenor. Who's our other baritone?
The other part must have been a straw man.
Yeah, that's it, straw man. And he really did have a straw wig and straw sticking out of his pants.
Wayne, say
Yes.
something about the time frame that when you in Iowa, when you moved to Bloomington, and so on.
Well, I moved to Minnesota after school at Iowa State and in '63, and Jim moved up here in 1969. So that's when my barbershopping started. I joined the chapter in 1970. And I was there till the bitter end. It was kind of a sad day to see the end of the Bloomington chapter as a group. It's the only chapter I ever belonged to, and the only one I will belong to. When you reach 80, that's about enough for me anyway.